We've had a couple of issues discussed with these wonderful gentlemen in last week's edition. And of course, there's more to be discussed, and we'll see how we'll bring this to a close. But I think, again, I'm going to have to get you, Allan and Vincent, on another occasion, because it looks like you're decimating the issues properly, and I still need you for future purposes and discussions. And to let you know, so we are right at V Gallery. That's where our studios are. V Gallery is our official sponsors on the property show, with bespoke, amazing luxury furniture, hotel for a residential home, hospital, whichever the case may be. Visit them at the industrial area and you'll be spoiled for choice, simply. The question of housing, we all understand how key and important it is. Before we get to it, there's been a very vital conversation we've been having with a couple of architects, and I need you guys to weigh in. A couple of months ago, $200 million was put aside to the remodeling of the Entebbe Airport, International Airport, widen the current existing terminal, build a bigger base for the cargo handling. As of the start of this year, 17% had been covered, and that is about $25 million US. Now, the challenge is that I don't know when last you were at the airport, but I was last at the airport in December, and I walked through the airport, and the only change I experienced was the fact that this time around, as opposed to doing everything ground floor, there was something going up and down, and that was it. But the question is, when we talk of housing and infrastructure, I always joke, but I think it's serious, that when you want to know whether Paris or France is a first world economy, as you're landing down, you're seeing certain features. You're seeing the Eiffel Tower, you're seeing the road network, and you're seeing all those. Now, when you're interfacing with Uganda, the first point of contact is you're landing down at Entebbe Airport. The conclusion of our conversation with the architects was probably they needed to engage the minds of a council of architects to sit down and say, how best do we serve the cake of Uganda to our tourists and visitors to the airport?
No, Edwin, I think as you said, the real estate, as I said, housing, lands and urban development is a driver to many things. I would bring this from the point of view that actually housing and real estate also has a very big multiplier effect. Tourism. You don't go to Dubai today to see any national park. It's the designs, it's the architecture, it is how the real estate is aligned, and we buy tickets with our families to say we want to go and see Dubai. And you walk through the airport, you see the design, the whole house is done, and so forth. You go to this mall and you see all these things, and you are come from there happy. You have spent Uganda money, you live it in Dubai, you come from Dubai.
Yes.
What you're saying is airport construction is a real estate development project. And therefore, one, the whole team, engineers, surveyors, architects, real estate managers, how is it going to be managed anyway? And all these things, you have to do the same thing, the same cycle of getting these guys on the table. But again, looking at the futuristic view of the country, what message do we want to make to the rest of the world in terms of tourism and attraction to more investors who are coming into your country? Therefore, the design must actually stand out. You must look at the competitive analysis and advantage of the region. How is Entebbe going to stand out compared to Kigali, compared to Jomo Kenyatta, compared to... I imagine that those professionals did that, but if they didn't do, again, value for money in the long term can actually be compromised. That's
so what we're going to do,
opinion.
I think in the interest of time, whatever I ask, we're going to try to address it very briefly. As I get to Allan, you and I know that as you're landing, among the features that come to you, let's leave the structure of the airport alone. There's the water, of course. Then there's those, I've always wanted to pick interest in who owns. There's that land there with a stretch of so many slummy consortium of homes and all that. In answering that, Allan, try to bring this to perspective as well. We've talked about the idea of physical planning. Where does physical planning start from? Is it a Kampala issue? Is it a national issue? So share with us briefly.
Yeah, I mean, very briefly, that there are certain things you can't run away from in terms of the culture of people, in terms of the history of people, and in terms of attention of the leadership of the people. And it will show in some of the things that you either can or cannot see. So if you had an opportunity to go to Singapore, for instance, you will want to spend your entire holiday at the airport because it is so amazing. I've never seen something of such beauty and of such real estate concentrated in a very small place. It's just out of, if there's heaven on earth, for a moment you can think that's what it is. That's my view. Everyone who has been there will tell you. I don't want to spoil that picture, but make Singapore one other country you've got to go to. Yeah? And I had a very special opportunity to be there at a time when I was forming my mind to certain things, and that impression will never change. But also I'll tell you, And by the way, the independence of Singapore is almost the same age as the independence of this country. I think for them it was 1961 or 63. I'll just do the point. So what does that mean? It shows you what that country has paid attention to over the years. As far as the Omanese were here thousands of years ago. But the last time I had a chance to be in Zanzibar, the airport was nowhere near something that you'd call a spectacle or something that you'd want to remember. Again, like I said, culture, leadership, attention. So
actually, Singapore's independence comes 3 years later, 65.
It's a much younger country, but you go there, and then you tell me the story of those people who live there. Only country where the entire population doesn't need a visa to go to any other country. What does that mean? It means they've proven that they can't be better in any other country than where they are. So don't disturb them when they come, receive them as gifts.
Let's see how we wrap up this show. For you that are just watching right now, we have more conversations that are coming up in the Homes Expo 2022 and the National Property Awards. That's in July. The actual dates by next week's edition will be out, and we shall roll out the whole campaign on how this is going to play out. We're still right at the V Gallery, where the finest furniture and luxury furniture is. Now, I'm just going to take 1 minute from each of you for these last key questions. Uganda Revenue Authority at the turn of last year, by 7th December actually, it was in place that anyone buying or selling land worth 10 million and above must have a tax indication number. That's the TIN. Question is from both your experiences, how do you feel people have responded to that, and do you think it was a wise move?
I can tell you again, I keep going back to the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Sort the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, even the tax base and tax revenue collection will go up. Because all these losses of finding who works where, which informal businesses where, if people are organized and the carpenters are in this area, that's where they work. The hotels are in that place. Now, how do you even hide from a tax man? This disorder of physical planning and the land and some kiosks next to whatever, it is very hard for URA, whether they have goodwill or not, even to try and really figure out who is where. So this confusion of physical planning and people doing whatever they want anywhere does not serve the country in terms of tax. So they can bring all these kind of things. But sometimes you can, when you're milking a cow that is not well fed, one day it will collapse.
About 3 years ago or even more, the Buganda Kingdom, I think through the BLB, launched the Chapa Mungalo project. Yes. Interesting, there are merits and demerits, but let me just address what I think is what I call knee-jerk reaction. So the knee-jerk reaction is that people you don't have titles come and get titles, all right? That's the knee-jerk. It appears like a good thing to do. But you're calling us at the point, and each of us at the point where we are, one, understand, two, can afford, right? So I come to you with my little box of land, 50 by 40 by 36 by 20. That's how people are owning land in these former Uganda areas. And you come today, he comes next week, she comes the other week, and so on and so forth. So what are you doing? You're essentially mapping Islam. You're mapping Islam. Now you bring Islam onto the national register. Who does that? So I tell these people, I say, you are BLB. I mean, who else can walk to KCCA, to Wakiso Municipal Council, to Makindi Saragabo, and say, why don't we regularize and then service and do aggregated parceling of land? And because we can go to Stanbic and borrow, we can even pre-finance the process. And these guys can come and get small loans to get their titles. And when they are titled, you guys can come and put plot numbers, start collecting property tax, start collecting rental tax, and all these things. So we sit down with all stakeholders in the room 6 months, put in all our monies on our business development budgets, because all of us have budgets to promote our mandate, come up with a product, sensitize it, pilot it, and we start. What does it take? So again, knee-jerk, widening tax base, widening tax base. That is the slogan around. But what do you need to do to organize the country for things? That's 4 things. Number one, register. National mass registration. That's one we seem to have. Good piece of infrastructure to manage any country. Second one is skill. These people. Because the next thing they want to do is they're going to be hungry every time. So they need to work. So skill them, give them opportunity to work. Spend your time in the fundamentals, and the simple things will just fall in place. That is my opinion.
We are coming to the end of this discussion, and parting thoughts. The economy is open, and of course, real estate, among other sectors, had the advantage that construction was open and all that. But of course, still, we're affected in more than one way or the other. What would be your parting shots to any person that is watching right now as we look to bettering our country? The government has its role, the private sector has its role, but away from all these institutions, there's an individual. To every individual that is watching, because I believe strongly it takes a transformed mind, one mind, to affect and be part of this national change and transformation we're talking about.
Yeah, Edwin, for me, I can tell you that I would like to tell everyone that Uganda is the only place we call home. And it's our obligation and mandate to fulfill that civic duty. That this country, we are here today, but our children are in our footsteps moving towards the same country. And they will never call another country another home. Even if they change their citizenship, they will never be proud somewhere else other than Uganda where they are born. And therefore, the obligation to ensure that basic needs, as we have said, is the starting point of addressing the general needs of the society is very critical and urgent. And I can assure you, between my profession, not only talking for real estate sector, land is critical. Housing is critical. Physical planning is critical. And managing urbanization in terms of rural-urban migration is not an issue of yesterday, it's for today. So it's our obligation as Ugandans to ensure that we continue addressing these issues in our daily professions and our work. Hope is not lost because government has put in a conducive environment. We need to complement that to organize our society.
Thank you, Mr. Mugisha.
I haven't worked in the public service yet. But I've learned to appreciate the role of public service during this time, and so one of my pieces of advice is that the public service community should assume a mindset change, because a lot of what is going to be able to shift this country from this shock is reaching out to what the government can deliver amid its circumstances. So that is one. Anyone in the private sector, any good doctor, nutritionist, or whatever, will tell you that you cannot sleep more than 8 hours a day unless you're ill or you're under some form of infection. 8 hours a day is enough. A day has 24 hours. So we need to move towards working 16 hours. Yes. All right? That's the only way we're going to catch up the extra day. Yes. So if we were working 8 hours a day before, if we worked 16 hours, in 1 year, we'll have done enough work for 2 years. In 2 years, we'll have done enough work for 4 years. Interesting. Yeah, in 3 years, we'll have done enough work for 6. And so therefore, we can easily catch up with the impact of COVID. But the other simple things are, life cannot go on in terms of how we were living our lifestyle before. So frugality is important in order to cut out any excess consumption, and capital investment must be at highest priority if you must put money away. And of course, borrowing should be almost at the very last resort for a reason that you need at a particular point in time. I think with that put in place, the positivity of people, the design of humanity from dealing with extremity and hardship is resilient enough, and this is Africa. So I think we're good to go. Incredible insights and words of wisdom. Thought leaders in the real estate industry, that's why I have them on this site at V Gallery, and I hope very soon I'll be able to invite them back. Mr. Vincent AGABA from AVATS, it's been a pleasure having you on site. Mr. MUGISHA Turyahikayo. And I strongly believe as a nation, we've come a long way. I always say, this change that we're talking about, it starts little by little with every individual contributing your collective efforts together. Then we become a better nation. Enjoy the rest of the show.